Hello, NFT land. I'm Creatorius Rex, and this is another episode of the Niftorious Show. We call this the twin. That's this week in NFT news. And as always, Skot Leach is joining me as my co-host. Hey, Skot, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. There's so many interesting things going on. And this week, well, I guess we've done this several weeks now. This is going to be episode 12. And I think we've done 5 or something like this of our weekly This Week in NFT news. Every week we've got something different and interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it's wild.
There's a lot going on. So we'll give people just a quick highlight of the things we're going to discuss so they understand. If you guys want to jump ahead, we've got chapters in there. You can see where to jump ahead. First, we're going to talk about ENS, Ethernet Naming Service. Big news there. OpenSea at 10 billion. That's interesting. ArtOfficial, a new marketplace, which we did not talk about a couple weeks ago when it was announced because we just didn't get to it. But with OpenSea coming up so big, seems like a good thing. So that's our third topic. Gary Vaynerchuk's involved in that. And we're going to do another one. Gary Vaynerchuk, the illustrious Skot Leach, is going to give us an update on the Hangout Hawk, which is one of the utilities from VeeFriends. Then we're going to talk about Pixar on Vee. And I've got some recent project data. I want to point out, I want to show you some things that we're doing because we're doing a lot of research through Niftorious. And I've got a couple things I want to point out to people. And it's a new resource people will be able to get to just about every day. So that'll be easy for them. And there's actually a special announcement at the end. It's about a new NFT project. We sort of teased it a little bit. I'm going to direct people to it. The official announcement's going to come out before this publishes. So I might as well just tell people about it now. So that's going to be at the end. So if you want to jump to the end, you can go get that right now. But all the information is going to be there for you to get started. And we're going to have more. So I'm very excited about that. All right, Skot, before we get into the top story of the week, any updates from you?
I was sat in on the first Hangout Hawk meeting this morning with Gary Vee. So when we get to that topic, I can talk about it. That was exciting. One of his access tokens, he had a lot to say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited about that. All right. So what we should do is let's get right into ENS. So ENS is the Ethereum naming service or Ethereum name service. You can buy it with Ethereum. It's basically website addresses. And part of this, or part of the origin here was we have these really long Ethernet addresses. I mean, this is true in any of these blockchains. And they're viewed as, they're considered to be not human readable. And I guess that's pretty fair given how long the strings are and the mix of characters. And so the idea there was to say, oh, well, why don't we create something that's a little bit easier? So you can just have like a one word or multiple word thing that's in generally in English, and then .eth at the end. So we have these essentially web addresses or URLs for an Ethereum, and you can do things with them already. Like for example, my OpenSea wallet is Creatorius, right? So that's the Creatorius.eth, and so I just basically assign that as the way the blockchain should see my wallet for one of my primary wallets for collecting NFTs. So, Skot, when did you acquire your first ENS domain?
I want to say the first one I got was actually, I think, through Decentraland because they let you buy names. Yeah, but it's I need to look into this because it's like a subdomain under. Yeah, I need to look at that. It's weird. It's an ENS address, but I think they hold it like it's Decentraland / whatever.
Interesting.
So I'm curious now if they actually got ENS for that. But I think the oldest one I hold is for Able Black. So Able Black is the string. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have someone actually gifted me my own name, which I forgot to do. I was grateful for.
Yeah, that's very good. You know, it's very interesting. I actually have my last name, and I was trying to remember if I have my full name, and I'm going to have to go back in and probably do that because a lot of people are going to be looking at it now. Okay, so the big news is ENS has been around for a while, but the real news is they created an ERC20 token, and that ERC20 token is now ENS. That's the symbol for it, and they airdropped to ENS.eth domain holders. And boy, I've never seen so many happy people on Twitter as I have the last few days.
Yeah. I heard about it and I was like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. And then I heard people talking about how excited they were and how much it was. And yeah, it's significant. And it's funny. A lot of people I've been talking to are using that as sort of oh, this is money I can go buy NFTs with now, because I wasn't expecting it.
Exactly. Oh, maybe this will lead to the next NFT boom. That's good, because well, and I wonder where you're going to get more alpha, particularly since we'll bring it up. Like, so this, the Ethereum name service chart here, and I think I got this from CoinMarketCap. We'll try to give you it probably says it somewhere in there, give you the sources for these things. But we actually just hovered over so you could see that number, 83.96. I was telling Scott just before, yesterday I looked at it, it was 42. I just pulled this chart up. I didn't even look at it, just assumed it was in the same space. And it's almost doubled since yesterday. That's pretty amazing. So what we were talking about is there are a lot of people who are getting low five figures. And the way it's set up is it is set up so that it gives you, there's an algorithm that it gives you a certain amount of ENS coins based on when you first registered. So the older it is in terms of how long it's been registered gives you some. And I think that's 0.3 of the calculation. And then 0.7 of the calculation, if I've got this right, is how long the longest one you have is. It could be any of the ones in your wallet, but you don't get benefit for having 20 in there. So it's like domain squatters not getting extra benefit here. Yeah. But the people who have had it for a while and are planning to have it for a long period of time, and it costs like an extra $5 a year to have it, you know. So like the first, it's really inexpensive. Gas, you pay more for gas than you do for anything else. It's or for the actual domain. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, if you want it for 10 years, it's like $50. I think, I can't even remember what the first thing is. It's like 15 or something like that, but it's an extra $45 to get it for 10 years. So this is pretty amazing. So a lot of people are getting, saying a sort of mid five figures. So more than $10,000, almost 20, I think in some cases, maybe some people were over 20, but that was when it was in the high 30s, low 40s. People have got to be in the mid 30s now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's significant. I mean, it's interesting because I do wonder if this is one where this could be a thing where a lot of people got in early, even before NFTs, because they remembered they had an analog back to so I wonder how many of those folks are out there and if they're aware of this and have taken advantage of it.
Well, I'm trying to let people know, and that's one of the reasons this is a top story. So first of all, if you have this, you actually have to go in and claim. So if you have an ENS address, you've been on ENS, and what you do is you just go to the Ethereum name service website, and then you open the app, you log in, you basically connect your wallet. That's how you log in, and it'll show all of your tokens there. And then what's the process after that? Why don't you, because you just did your claim, why don't you tell people what you had to do?
Yeah. You sign, and your wallet pops up, you sign, and then you actually have to choose what was the word they use? You have to choose someone to kind of represent you.
A delegate.
Yeah. That was strange. I wasn't quite sure, like, what is this? But it says you can change at any point in time. So I thought, okay, I'll just pick someone. And after that, then you pay your gas or your fee, and you get the ENS shows up in your wallet. At first glance, I was kind of distracted doing something else, and I saw the price was around 50 a coin, token, maybe 51 or 52 at that time. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I just assumed that was the whole lump sum, and I think I just paid like $120 or something to claim them. And I was like, oh well, lesson learned. I should have watched more closely.
You paid $120 in gas for $50 in coins. That's what you thought
at first, and I thought, that's all right. Maybe these will be, there's something to this in the future. And so I hadn't really thought much more about it. And then I realized I should be paying attention here. I have several coins. Like, this is not this is per coin. I was shocked when I saw the total. I think my oldest address, I have lots of addresses, but my oldest was the Able Black one, because it wasn't counting those Decentraland ones I mentioned. So I think I ended up with like 122 or 125 coins. And then this morning, right before the show, I looked again and was like, oh, it's up to, this is like $9,000 now or something. Crazy. Like that was out of the blue. I was not expecting that. So very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, amazing. So the one thing that I think was not really well marketed, described, is this whole delegate process. So like, what are we getting into in delegate? And there's actually, by going through the process, you have to accept, and I haven't done this yet. So I sort of went through it a little bit, and I'm like, geez, I don't know enough about what's going on. And so I just have to step back, and you have some time to claim this. So it's not that urgent, but you basically are accepting some basic, what would we call it? Rules and regulations for how the DAO is going to work, because it's basically a DAO. And then you're delegating to someone who's going to be your representative.
Yes.
Which is also really interesting that you have to do that. And so if you aren't prepared and you're just looking at a list, I don't know, like how do you decide who to go after?
Yeah. And it's a list of names that you're not sure. Like my first impression when I saw it was like there's a Coinbase one and it had the Coinbase symbol. It's like, is this, they have the Coinbase address there clearly, but does Coinbase actually own that, or is this someone else?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, Coinbase is by far the largest delegate holder right now.
Yeah. So that's what I, after first glance, when I actually looked at it a little bit longer, realized like, okay, now I get it.
So did you delegate to Coinbase?
No, I just was looking at the different, looking for someone I recognized. And I wasn't sure. Again, I was like, what exactly happens? You get so used to this. It's funny, man. You start doing this Web3 stuff and connecting to sites and doing things quickly and getting in NFT space where you have to respond quickly to opportunities. And you kind of like, this is terrible, but I go into a little bit of autopilot. I was like, oh, I'll just click and claim. And then the delegate thing just stopped me. I was like, okay, I need to actually focus on what the heck I'm doing right now.
This is one of the reasons why people get hacked.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about it before. Like it's easy to go into this kind of autopilot mode and make a mistake. But then so I stopped and looked a little closer and saw that you can change your delegate. So that was good to know. And,
you can change.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You fear not. You can claim and then, select the delegate and go back. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that Coinbase is the largest delegate right now for this. I think it's pretty great that they're so supportive of it because they're such a big player. And for the most part, they want a lot of the same things. I think people are concerned about the centralization of Coinbase, but in general, the way they've acted thus far has been as a good steward in the crypto community.
Yeah, I think the name recognition thing is what are getting people to click on that, because it's sort of like, who are these? What exactly does this mean when I select a delegate? So I wonder if people are selecting Coinbase because it's name recognition or something. We'll see.
All right. Well, it's a brilliant airdrop. It's the value of the ERC20, ENS ERC20 exceeds 500 million, and hit that number within like 24 hours of the drop. So that's unusual to get that much traction so quickly. And there's a real utility here. And, oh, by the way, we were talking about NFTs. These are NFTs, right? So if you don't have an ENS, you probably should. I recommend everybody get their name or their company name, all the above. It's not that expensive. It'll be worth it if you really believe that, the blockchain and Ethereum are going to be important over the next decade. You want that, just like you wish you had potentially the web address for your name or your company, and you didn't have to get it from some squatter, in Web 1. So in any event, so I think I definitely recommend people do this. And I really like the fact that they have this utility. So right now you buy a Ethereum domain or an Ethereum name, you do it using Ether. I assume in the future we're going to be able to use ENS. I figured that all these ENS I have now, I should be able to use pretty soon, because I don't think you can do it today, but I'd like to be able to start using it to buy other ENS addresses.
Yeah, that's that would make sense.
Yeah. I mean, so talk about a super utility.
Yeah. It's all built in. I mean, yeah. I think also the fact that it looks like something people have seen before, right? Like we have the domain comparison. Yes. I think it could be another one of these things that helps bring people into the space.
Right. Okay, great. Let's move on. Topic number 2 today is OpenSea. They had a bit of a milestone. I think it was yesterday, although you guys are going to be watching this afterwards. So just call it this week. They hit $10 billion in total transactions. And just to give you a little bit of data here, that's 630,000 traders. So those are people with wallets who've actually purchased an NFT. Average sale price, $872, which used to be a significant amount of ETH, but now it's with ETH at the price it's at, it's probably like less than 0.05, I would guess. So 0.04 or not less than 0.5, 0.4 something. No, that's not right. No, it'd be 0.05. I was right the first time. 0.04, right? Something like that. 4,700. Yes. So if for the people who think it ETH, but obviously where I got this from, which was Bitcoin.com, they report everything in US dollar, which is fine. So $872, that's good. Okay, so first, what do you think about that?
It's a huge number. I mean, $10 billion in NFTs that's a lot. I mean, especially considering how fast this has all gone down. I think I've been pretty interested in NFTs for quite a while, but it wasn't till this year that I started getting really active. So yeah, it's crazy how fast this has happened.
And it's a lot of fees for them. So they just raised $100 million over the summer.
Yep.
And I think they take 2.5%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's been true since the beginning. So quick math, I think that's $250 million in revenue just from transactions. Now they've got other things that they can monetize. But that's pretty robust, particularly considering where we are in the cycle, which is the front of the cycle.
Yeah. It's huge. And I mean, I to your point, it's the front of the cycle. Like, what are the next services that they can offer that could even do more with that? Everyone wants to mint now, right? And so you have these custom solutions, and then you have one-off scenarios, or you have sites like Foundation where you can apply to be an artist or be recommended or invited rather. I know OpenSea is doing a little of that, but I think there's going to be more of these, making it easier for folks to kick off their NFT projects. I don't necessarily know that. Well, I won't get into it, but I think that obviously as more projects come on board, we're going to see less. There's going to be less of these scenarios where, really they don't all break out, and we're already starting to see that. But this sort of gold rush period, I think, is over.
Yeah. Based on our final announcement, or the announcement we're going to make at the end of the show today, it's like, I feel like very bad timing for some things, but yes, some of that is over. Okay. So there's another data point that's sort of buried in one of the articles that was in Bitcoin.com. Axie Infinity was 30% of all OpenSea sales. $3 billion. I knew Axie was big, but I didn't realize it was not only that big, but it was that big a percentage of all OpenSea activity.
Yeah. That it's funny. I've had several people that have come to me to say, like, I want to learn about NFTs. I want to get into it. And they bring up Axie. And it's one of those ones that I like search my Discord or my Slack, and it's like, man, I was talking about this however long ago and thinking about doing something and didn't, and just kicking myself. But I think it's awesome. It's a game. It's got utility. It's got, I think it's neat because it speaks to the utility is a big deal. And the more we've talked about this in other shows, but the more that we can demonstrate that people are interested in the utility, it's just going to give the whole thing legs, right? So It's good to hear it. It's a ton of money though.
Oh, it's astounding. And they just announced their own NFT marketplace, so that's going to be a hit for OpenSea. OpenSea's had they've had they haven't had a ton of competition. They came out, they had a good model. It wasn't as exclusive as some of the others, easy to use.
Yep.
And so they just swept up all of the money that was on the sidewalk. And boy, that marketplace segment is going to get crowded very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll see how they do. The Coinbase one is scary. If I was in OpenSea's shoes, I would be.
Maybe. I think they've got liquidity though. I suspect we'll see. Marketplaces tend to go towards 1 to 2 models, 80% plus market share. You have a couple with 25 to 35% market share, and then everybody else sort of nipping at their heels.
Yeah. And the thing that what I would be thinking about, doing their own coin and allowing people to list in OpenSea coin for no fees.
Oh, right.
So if you list and purchase using OpenSea coin, they drop the fee or they lower
well, you can do that today with an 1155 though, can't you?
I'm saying OpenSea make that. Yes, they could do it, but if they made that a part of the flow so that people minting or selling could choose that option, they could get a lot of folks to be like, oh, I can avoid a fee. I mean, 2.5% isn't much, but if you're selling a 10 ETH, I mean, I guess it's relative to everyone's circumstance, but you start looking at some of these big things,
it's meaningful. Well, and that's the interesting thing too is you look at this $10 billion in OpenSea, but for a lot of things, like VeeFriends is a good example because the price of those tokens is so high. There's a lot of private transactions, and OpenSea's not.
Yep.
So there's people who are working around it. But in any event, congratulations to OpenSea.
Yeah,
they really nailed it. They had the right timing. They delivered a mostly flawless functionality. I think there's some people who've been delisted or not that happy with them right now. But for basically creating the opportunity for a mass market to congeal around a common space, they got it. And I would in many ways bet on
it works. Like, it's crazy that it's this big and it works this quickly. Like that's never happened.
I mean, they've done a nice job. I mean, scalability is really important. And they've done it, despite the fact that it's, you've got Ethereum and you've got gas and all these other things. So I really believe that if, what you just said, they're going to have some sort of way to run this with their own token. They can do a layer 2 or their own layer 2 or just a side chain off of Ethereum. There's probably some opportunity there, particularly for things that are going to be like large collections of low dollars. Right now, it works well for things that are not that cheap when it comes down to it. You don't see too many things below $50. And I would guess that, I don't know where the median is, but there's a lot of things are over $100. So in that case, the current model is not that big a deal, but just think about the size of the market where things could be, $5, right? And so we see some of these other independent marketplaces that are side chains that have no fees or, no gas or some combination of all of the above.
Yep. Yeah. And I also wonder with some of these marketplaces, if they're going to come out with as you start to, whether you're using MetaMask and you're switching networks to do things on OpenSea, or whether you are on Solana at some other marketplace, I do wonder about a future where some of these NFT marketplaces basically make it a seamless user experience, depending on whether you're jumping to a different layer 1 or if at some point this stuff will get blended in a way where it's like I don't even know what the solution looks like.
Like that would be, they have the resources to do this right now. I believe that Coinbase is really working on this idea of a multi-chain solution.
Yeah.
They're going to support Ethereum, which they've said, but they said they're going to support other chains as well.
I mean, it's how Coinbase, the exchange app, works now, right? Like I go on there, I can buy Bitcoin, I can buy ETH, I can buy Solana. As far as I'm concerned, it's all in my wallet. Now, I think purists that want to hold their own wallet and don't want to be in that custodial scenario won't prefer that. But I think for lots of folks that are coming to it for the first time, that's going to lower a lot of the barriers.
Okay, so for this, certainly for the large scale, just mass market, we have OpenSea and Coinbase is lined up as the sort of the key competitors here for the marketplace of choice. And Coinbase has already said they're going to be multi-chain. I fully expect OpenSea to be multi-chain. Then we have the specialists, and I think everyone else out there really is in that specialist category right now. And that'll go to our next topic, which we're going to talk about ArtOfficial. This is a project from Gary Vaynerchuk. I think people will know him from VeeFriends. Many people will know him from all of his other social media and marketing activities prior to the NFT space. Obviously, a big, maybe the most prominent person who sort of crosses over in terms of awareness, in terms of the Web 2 and Web 3 world right now. He and Vito Schnabel, who has a number of galleries, have created ArtOfficial. Now, one of the things about it is a marketplace. So they're already selling NFTs on there. And I don't think it's started yet, but the first opera NFT is going to be on there. But they also have some visual artists, which they launched with. It's really for established artists. So you find OpenSea you find some established artists, you find some new artists. What I think about is ArtOfficial is playing on this fact that obviously Schnabel has a lot of contacts and expertise in the industry. Gary Vaynerchuk has a lot of contacts. He certainly knows people in the industry, but he also really has this incredible reach. And one of the things I try to talk to people about is like, we now have 100 to 1,000x more collectors of art than we had just a year ago. It's just amazing what's going on. People are now art collectors who never would have considered themselves that before. But we have this idea of sort of Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside playing off of this. And really an opportunity for some of these established artists to take advantage of both of those pieces. It seems to me that this is competing more with Rarible and Foundation than something like OpenSea.
I think so. This is a kind of a mix of all those things. I think you're right. It's got a little taste of those other NFT platforms. And it also feels a little like, I know obviously he just sold some stuff at that Christie's auction. So I wonder how much of it might be a little bit more like a traditional auction in terms of, will there be sort of like, those sort of live events? Cause I know he's into that kind of stuff and it has some hype around it. It's I think it's different. He's really good at the niche thing, finding some aspect or context around a product or service and finding how to make it appeal to people. So this one's interesting to me.
Yeah. And so he brings expertise along the technical side. Maybe not him necessarily personally, but obviously he's built up technology businesses in the past. Plus he had his own successful NFT drop off of his own website.
Yep.
So he's done that. He certainly has been playing on a lot of the websites, both as a collector and as a promoter of some of these other programs.
Yeah.
And so he's got that. Plus he has the promotion side, and then you have the curation side from Vito. So that makes sense. The other thing that Gary really prides himself on is strategy here. And he really changed, I think, the way a lot of people thought about utility with NFTs.
Yes.
It seems like it's not to say there wasn't utility before, because that's unfair. There clearly was utility, but before and after VeeFriends, it's very stark, right? So there was a lot of art going out,
Yeah.
and there was very little art with utility. VeeFriends, almost all utility, although now considered art, right, based on sort of some of the success of it. And now we have this idea that everybody has to think about utility. And that's one of the key benefits. He's saying, hey, yeah, we'll be able to give you a promotion and these other types of things, but we're going to help you figure out what utility to offer. And they have this really cool one for one of the artists who's on there. If you buy one of the NFTs, that artist will actually create a custom portrait of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a really interesting utility that, you know, like, oh, I'm buying this thing, but I'm getting the NFT plus I'm getting this artist who's obviously somewhat accomplished doing a custom portrait of me.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about it. We've talked about utility a lot in several episodes. We were talking about it earlier with ENS. I think there's some projects like games, like the ENS thing, where the utility is basically built into it, right? So you sort of get it out of the box. Then you've got this other layer of utility that folks do, where it's like, okay, well, you're now part of a DAO, but it's sort of a weird, like, well, what's the purpose of this thing? And then you have the IP thing. The utility is the IP, and the Bored Apes route where you own the IP. I do think that Gary Vee is really good at that space where it becomes ambiguous and you need to articulate the utility in a not built-in way. It's not a game, so you have to now figure out how to continue to support this thing. And he's huge on that. And I think that's going to be a thing that, as we see projects that have been out for a while and are coming out now, we'll see what happens when the rubber hits the road, if they're able to continue to provide a level of utility that makes those NFTs still have value. Yeah, I think a lot of projects are going to fail at that because it's tough. It's a commitment.
Okay, so ArtOfficial, everyone should check that out, artofficial.com. OFFICIAL official, for those of you who are just listening.
Now, there was another thing he said that relates to this. I want
to go for it.
In the Hangout Hawk Day, he said he's also doing a show on Twitter Spaces that is, I think he said it's going to call it VNA, I believe. And it sounds almost like a finding up and coming artists and helping them get visibility for their NFTs, or helping them kick off NFT projects based on what they've done so far. So it sounds like you said earlier, the ArtOfficial might be for established artists.
Yes.
It sounds like this show that he wants to host is going to be sort of the other end of bringing up folks that are getting started, who have a lot of talent and commitment, but don't necessarily have the audience in place yet. So that's interesting.
And that's great. And you see something like Kevin Rose's show, Proof, is very popular, but again, it's established artists. And it's very difficult because obviously there's very few really established audiences or artists, and they all have people who are already interested in them. So if you're going to do a podcast or something like that, you have an automatic draw, right?
Totally.
And then you have the multitude. And it's just like most of us are in the multitude most of the time, right? And they are not established. They don't have a big audience yet.
Mm-hmm.
They still need a lot of assistance in this space, particularly since having spent a lot of time with artists recently, they don't have these big audiences, big communities. No. And a lot of it's because they're segregated from the collectors by the galleries and the curators.
Yeah. Well, here's the great news for artists. Like, now is the time, man. If you're out there doing this stuff and you've been hustling and, putting your stuff up for free and getting lots of likes, but no actual cash that you can, continue to work on your craft full time or achieve whatever goals you want. Now is like you make the pie that everyone else is cutting and eating right now. So it's very exciting, I think, for those folks.
Absolutely.
If you have the raw stuff, right? Building a community is not easy, but it can be done. And now that there's a clear thing you can sell, that was tricky before. It's hard to sell a physical piece of artwork, especially if you're a digital artist. I think it's an exciting time for creators.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about you teased Hangout Hawk. So that's one of the
Yeah.
utility tokens from VeeFriends.
Yep.
Why don't you give us an update?
Yeah. So quick context, Hangout Hawks is a utility token from VeeFriends, Gary Vee's project. You get, I think there was 128 total Hangout Hawks, and you get access 1 hour Zoom meeting with all the Hawks and Gary. And I think that's 9 times a year, I want to say, for 3 years. I'll check the numbers on that, but somewhere around there. Sure. So, and of course, lots of folks own more than one Hangout Hawk. So it wasn't, I think there was maybe 100 people in that Zoom call, which sounds like a lot, but there's that magic number. If it's under 150 people, you can actually start to remember people's names.
Oh, right.
Yep. Like our brains can wrap around that. So it was tighter knit than the Gift Goats one I sat in last week or the week before. He was very excited, very grateful that everyone had participated. I had picked up a Hangout Hawk. He mentioned over and over again that he felt that group was not just, this wasn't a relationship of fan to creator. This was he used the word family once, business partners. He basically said, like, you're part of my kind of inner circle at this point. I know he's a hype guy and he likes to talk about that kind of stuff, but it did feel genuine in the way that a lot of stuff he says feels genuine. It was cool. There was a lot of Q&A. He brought up some stuff that I thought was super interesting. He says he does want to try and provide lots of alpha in those meetings and give people a chance to take advantage of opportunities that are, whether they're NFT related or coin related or even other things. He is super bullish on his own VeeFriends, obviously. Sure. He's a hype guy, but it felt genuine. He said he wants the access tokens to be so sort of over deliver that those become the things that everyone kicks themselves and says, I should have bought them. He said with Hangout Hawks, a lot of people kept asking him, like, what happens after 3 years when we've used up all the utility? And he basically said that he wants this to he wants it to change people's lives. And if that means at the end of 3 years, he extends it for another 5 years, he'll do that. Or if he does something else with the IP, he made a lot of promises about how much he was going to deliver on this in terms of IP. Sounds like he has a lot of IP deals in the works that are very close to being done. Let's see, what are some other highlights? He thinks we're going to hit a big, and we've talked about this too. He thinks there's going to be an NFT sort of dip in December as people start to realize that they have to figure out taxes. And I think that's aligns with what we've talked about, that we were expecting some of that, and we're seeing a little bit of that. The fact that ETH is going bananas right now is also adding a sort of twist in that whole thing. Yeah, it was interesting. I felt strongly from the get-go that his NFTs were good, because I think he is especially good at communicating big abstract concepts to people. He's, was huge on social media. He's got a wide audience that ranges from, blue collar workers to celebrities to entrepreneurs.
Right.
So I still like his stuff. And every time I come out of one of these calls with him, I don't want to sound like I'm drinking his Kool-Aid, but I think he's legit. Like, I think he actually does what he says. And, it's exciting. I've thought a few times about selling the Hangout Hawk or the Gift Goat, because I think I talked about before, like, I don't really want much stuff. I just got the Gift Goat to seem like an opportunity. Yeah, I was excited by it.
Well, I'll just jump in here for a second, because I remember you and I talking about it, and you said if you sold one of those, you'd be more inclined to sell the Gift Goat. And I was like, really? I mean, you get stuff, and some of that might be like really culturally relevant things, and there's a lot of hype around it. But you said, well, there's fewer Hangout Hawks.
Yeah, the math I did, like the gift code actually becomes the most common character, I think, because there's 500 of them, right? But every other character, there's 128 of them. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and this sounds like this idea that that's his inner circle. That's going to be appeal to people. If that becomes widely known, I think more people are going to be really looking towards those Hangout Hawks.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, he brought this up too, and it's something that I've seen happen with that. So on his Discord, the Hangout Hawks, if you hold that token, you get access to a private channel of just Hangout Hawks.
Right.
It is a built-in network almost, right? So you now have, it's like a LinkedIn thing. If I'm looking for work or looking for someone to help me with something or looking to hire someone, whatever I'm after, I can go to that group and say, hey, anyone know a good designer? Yeah, there's a lot of utility just in the fact that you're with another 128 people who are, in this case, about 100 people who have that same thing that you have.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's powerful. And he brought it up too. He said he's waiting for the day when someone has a layover in Denver or something and pings that channel and says, are there any Hangout Hawks in Denver? Want to go to a baseball game or whatever the case is. I think we're going to start to see some of that stuff. And we talked about it with NYC NFT last week, and how those kind of relationships, those face-to-face relationships, real world stuff is a big deal. So yeah.
Perfect. Stuff. Okay. A lot of Gary Vee the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to come up more frequently as we go forward. Okay. So next topic, let's talk about Pixar. So Pixar has some NFTs out. They have the what do they call it? The pizza, the Pizza Planet delivery van, which I believe is I think it's an Easter egg that's shown up in every Pixar movie at least once. And then they also have WALL-E. And so if I remember correctly, WALL-E, there's 10,000 of those. That's the robot from the eponymous robot from the movie WALL-E. And then I don't remember, maybe it's 6,000 or so of the Pizza Planet van, but probably doesn't matter. There's somewhere between 6 and 10,000 of these things. This is a piece of culture that a lot of people can get. You don't have to pay high gas fees because you get it on VV. What do you think?
I like it. Here's the thing. Pixar and Disney, there's always a lot of merch associated with it. So like, is this merch or is this a collectible? And both are interesting, but I think what's more interesting to me, what I get really excited about, is Pixar makes digital movies. Like it's natively digital content. Like where this stuff could go gets super exciting to me. Whether if they made a bunch of the army men from the Toy Story movie, right? And you can buy individual army men. There's only one of the gunner or whatever the case is, right? And you own it. In the credits, if your gunner shows up, could you get a credit at the end of the movie that says like NFT owned by this ENS address or something? Like
I don't believe Disney or Pixar would ever do that, but maybe someone.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure that specific use case, no. But you start to imagine some really interesting ways that you could incorporate this digital content into the films themselves. Pixar's in a really unique situation to do that. And I think that's awesome.
Okay. So I have a question for you about this. You say, okay, this is cool. It's obviously Disney's got a huge audience. Pixar's got a huge audience. These are absolutely pieces of culture. Would these be more valuable if they are on the Ethereum blockchain?
Yes, I think so. At least for right now. Now that could change, but yeah, I think it's tricky right now. I think at some point we have to there has to be a method for moving NFTs to various blockchains. I don't know, maybe not. It's hard for me to reconcile. This is pure gut now, but it's hard for me to believe that this is a one unique special thing when there's all these different chains. It starts to get, there's a lot of people that believe in NFTs on the Ethereum network. There's a good amount of people that are doing this on, Top Shots, wherever else.
Right.
But if it gets spread out too thin, I do start to wonder, like, okay, does the group of people that are in this side chain all believe in the power of NFT? I don't know. And maybe that's just my own cognitive thing I got to deal with, but
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, our friend Jeremiah Aoyang is very bullish on VeeFriends, so I take that very seriously. That he is, and Dan Schwabel as well. So I think we have to. I want to take a deeper look at this. I haven't spent as much time on it, so I did see Dan and Jeremiah both on interview shows, YouTube interview shows, not too long ago, talking about this. I think it's really interesting. I wonder about the centralization and how that ultimately breaks down, or is that better because it enforces exclusivity, but maybe restricts portability, and so maybe that's a good trade-off for some people. There might be a little bit more security baked in.
Yeah, I think it could change too. When I say it would be more valuable on Ethereum network, I think that's right now, right? I think as people start to dabble in these other, I shouldn't even say dabble because it's happening in large amounts. As people use various side chains and and either aren't paying gas or start to see some of the benefits of those other options, I think ETH is going to lose a little bit of its luster. Obviously things are supposed to get better there, but sure. Yeah, I think it could very easily change.
I think it's fair. So you have investors, you have a lot of investors on the Ethereum blockchain right now. A lot of them are flush with crypto because they're early in the space or have done well in NFTs over the last year. So that just makes sense to me that that the investors would bid these things up. I don't know. There's probably a lot of investors in VeeFriends as well, but there's also a lot of collectors. So it might not actually matter if people just want to hold that piece of culture somewhere. They want to have access to it.
And I think someday someone's going to solve this issue. Like whether you hold it, there's going to be something that doesn't care where it came from. Yeah, it won't matter.
Very soon. And that'll ultimately be the thing that becomes a big benefit or barrier to success for some of these layer 2s or alternative layer 1s. Are the NFTs accepted and easily transferred in and out of your chain? Okay, great. So that was fun talking about that. We're definitely going to have a session where we really talk about that in depth, because I think VeeFriends is doing some really interesting things. I want to bring up something else too that some people may have seen if they followed me, Creatorius Rex, on Twitter. Some of the people on our team around Niftorious, and you guys know Niftorious.com, we're doing some more news. And one of the things we do is we look at the data and research. And right now we're looking at a lot of these NFT projects that are launching and seeing how the strategies people are using to launch, but also the ones that have been in the market for a little while. And we've been putting out these little infographics because we had all this data and we're like, oh, we're going to put out a report and these types of things, but we should share some of our work as we go is really the thought. And so, for example, we have Robotos here, and we just put this together, and you can see this in Twitter, for example. We've got crypto dads, and we've got some basic information again, floor price, mid price, volume traded, so people can get a quick glance at that if they're not keeping up with it on a daily basis. And then we've got Secret Society of Whales as well. Each one of these, actually, if you click through, you see that bit.ly/NFT-market-data. So bit.ly, everyone knows how to get there. bit.ly/NFT-market-data. If you go there, you just click that. That's a Discord channel. That's an open channel. So you don't actually have to be part of that. You have to have a Discord account, but a lot of people have that. And most people in this space are going to have at least access to Discord. So you can just click through, and we actually have additional data, because these things, like, we have a lot more data than you just put on one card that you share on Instagram or Twitter. And so I encourage people to go there so they can see some additional data, and we're going to be putting a lot of data into that channel, and then also the rest of the site as well. So just wanted to point that out, that it's a resource that we're going to make available in bulk later, but we decided to put some of this stuff out while we're doing it, just so we can start to get some engagement, and some people might find it useful.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone look for that. Go to that bit.ly link /NFT/market/ or excuse me, NFT-market-data. Okay, great. And what you should do is you can actually see all this stuff over at Niftorious.com. But as we close, I just want to briefly mention that we have a new NFT project and Skot is part of this. He's one of the artists that's been involved in this. There's 4 of us who came together some time ago looking at this space. And if you want to check it out, go to Niftorian.com. So you think about Niftorious, right? So it's a place. And you think about it in that way. And Niftorian are the citizens of Niftorious. So Niftorian, Niftorian.com. And you can learn all about this. But let me just tell you a couple things about it. So the first thing I'll say is it's an artist-centric and collector-friendly NFT project. I'm seeing a lot more things for collectors, but I'm not seeing as many that are really focused on artists. And the mission is to facilitate 1,000 NFT projects supporting artists and connecting those artists with collectors. So 1,000 successful NFT projects. And we're launching this with, first, our Founders Collection. So there's 14 artists. Skot is one of the 14 artists that we're featuring in a collection of NFTs, and really just amazing art. We gave each one of the people who were involved, each one of the artists who were involved, just one thing that we wanted it to be part of, one thing that we wanted in that, and then really it was up to them. So we have 14 different styles. We have everything from generative. We have one that was created in VR. We have another that is actually physical, but they took a video and created a GIF out of the assembly process. So there's a lot of different pieces in there, and we really wanted to highlight this. Now, I will say, really interesting, 9 of the 14, this is their first NFT ever, and so that was also consistent with our mission, because we're just looking at this. There's a lot of folks in the art space that we really believe can benefit tremendously from this. And I have this whole thing, and what you guys can do is I'm going to do a separate show just with the other founders of this. Skojo, our art director, Mikhail Stanislawic from the tech side, Roger Kibbe, also from the tech and operations side. We're going to talk about why we came together to do this. And one of the thoughts was Web 1 actually didn't do a whole lot for artists. It sort of, that structure stayed in place. Web 2 gave a little bit more promotion, a little bit more reach, but again, it didn't fundamentally change the monetization process that goes forward. I think you've mentioned this, right? This idea that, hey, there's a lot of artists out there, and you're getting a lot of likes, but are you selling more? Yeah. And what is this doing to make your art a sustainable economic activity as well as a creative activity? So we looked at that and we said, Web3 is just very different. That was so obvious to me, having seen the utility, if you think about discovery, distribution, and monetization in the previous waves. So we were very excited about that. We really thought there was an opportunity to help artists. So this is a PFP project. And I will say that what happens with the Founders Collections, there's 14 of them, but there's multiples of those. There's going to be many hundreds of those available. So in multiples of 14. So you can think about it that way. You can collect those, and you should collect them, because I think a lot of these artists are not only, some of them are already prominent, but a lot of them are going to be prominent over time. But they serve as a mint pass for the pre-mint. So if you want to get into the pre-mint, everyone wants the pre-mint list. All you need is one of these mint passes, and that'll allow you to mint up to 3 in the pre-mint. Gash at your leisure, mint at your leisure, low gas. So that's going to be a way that people can get in there. And we've got some things that we'll be announcing over the coming weeks. But I really believe the Founders Collection is going to be a collection in its own right. They're collectibles in their own right, just because the quality of the art is so high. So I think people are really going to like that. Now, there is a question about whether we need another PFP project right now, because it's fair. There's a lot of PFPs out there. Ultimately, it's important because it's a mechanic. I mean, we actually think one of our artists actually from the Mint Pass is actually also our PFP artist. And it's amazing what he's been doing. So I'm really glad that we're doing this, because I think it's going to be fun for people. And it's also really important because it's a mechanic that will facilitate a lot of community activity. So I think it's good art. I think people will have this affinity associated with the project just because they hold it in their wallet. But also it's going to give you access to certain types of things. So the things that we've announced so far, the first is there's an NFT Artist Con. So there'll be more on this soon, but think about a 2-day event, and it's going to be there's going to be a part of it which is going to be very focused on helping get artists up to speed in the space. And then there's also going to be something where artists can actually do some promotion, and they can get to know some of the collectors. Because one of the things we learned in talking to a lot of the artists is they really want to meet collectors. And oh, by the way, collectors want to meet artists. And that's something that's broken. Maybe there's a few places this is happening, but not a lot. It seems like it's still a really significant point of friction. So that's one. So the Artist Con is going to be something that we're scheduled for January. So very much like VeeFriends, you hold this token and you're going to be able to attend this event, which I think will be one of a kind in terms of the types of things we're doing to try to help people be successful in this space, make connections, that type of thing. The next thing is we're going to run an NFT 100 artist show. So we're going to get 100 artists together, and we're going to do a large show. This is going to be a metaverse hosted show. So we're working out the logistics on this. You can probably guess some of the things that we'll be doing. This will be after the con, probably 6 to 8 weeks after that. And our hope is we're going to get dozens and dozens of artists their first NFT sale, and we're going to facilitate this whole process. We're going to bring the collectors together. If you hold an NFT, one of the PFPs, you'll have early access to this art show. So some of these things are actually going to be in short supply, and so it's going to be really beneficial to hold one of these tokens in order to get some of those. And then we'll have it open to the public as well, because we want to get maximum exposure. So those are a couple. We have another utility we're going to announce on the 17th of November. So look for that. I'm not going to talk about that today. But in general, what we have is we actually have a whole roadmap too that we're not announcing, because as we started looking at this, we're looking at this as a 10-year project. We have a lot of ideas, many things that we absolutely know we're going to be implementing between now and the next 7 or 8 months. And most of it is focused on participatory and learning experiences. So I hope a lot of people will look at this. So just go to Niftorian.com and click through to the Discord, ask questions. We're there. And follow me, Creatorius Rex, or Niftorian on Twitter, and you'll get all the data. So thanks, Skot, for your participation. Yeah. Any comments on it? Because it
was so cool to get. So I don't want to reveal anything. It was given a sort of theme and objects that needed to be incorporated into the design. It was neat to do it and not know what other folks were doing, and then see their results. I don't know. Making art can be a kind of fun. It's incredibly fun process, and enjoyable, satisfying process, but also lonely at times, right. Especially depending on what type of art you do. And when you see what lots of other folks did, you sort of, I don't know, it makes it feel less lonely and exciting, and you feel this sort of like camaraderie. So yes, that's just with the other artists and not even meeting them yet. So the prospect of meeting artists, meeting collectors, that's a big deal. A feedback loop is a part of artwork that sometimes is missing. You don't, you get that in software and things like that, but artwork, sometimes it takes a lot of time. So this is exciting. Yeah, they're cool. I eager to see what people think of all those pieces.
I'm excited too. We didn't know it was going to come back. We just guessed. We obviously had some really good artists, and Skojo did a selection process and that type of thing. But I think people are really going to like it. So go to Niftorian.com. And everyone check it out. And hit me up if you have any questions about it. Oh, and by the way, that 100 Artists NFT show, actually, you're going to be able to go and sign up for that if you want to participate as an artist. So we're going to be recruiting artists for that. I don't know how many will sign up or want to participate. I suspect it's going to be more than we have slots for. So please make sure you give us your contact information so that as we go through that process, we can get in touch with you. And I think that's it for today, Scott. What do you think?
Yeah, that was good. Good stuff. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. NFT hunters, good luck and all that you're doing in this space over the next year. I hope, or the next week. I hope that you've enjoyed this edition of the Niftorious Show, the twin this week in NFT news. And we'll be back until next week. Happy hunting.